I met a kid last spring who was doing his level best to disappear. Took me a while to see it. Took me a good while longer to figure out why it bothered me so much. Because I'd seen a boy pull that same trick before, a long time ago, and I didn't do a thing about it. Pull your chair up. Fire's good tonight. This one I've been carrying around a while.
Get your coffee first, Hank. He always starts before he's got his coffee, and then he's mad the whole story he can't reach it.
She's not wrong. Never is. 43 years, and she's got me timed like a soft-boiled egg. So, last spring, we were up in the high country in Colorado, a little Forest Service campground down on the Dolores River. You know the kind, a dozen sites, cottonwoods just coming green, the river up and loud with the snow melt, and the peaks still white behind you like winter forgot to leave. It's my favorite time of year in a place like that. Everything's about to happen and nothing has yet. Maggie had the chairs out, Scout was flat on his side in the one patch of sun like an old rug somebody dropped.
He found the sun before we found the sights. That dog's got a gift.
He does. Anyhow, 3 sites down from us there was a van, old one. Rust-colored Chevy, the kind with no windows in the back, a ladder bolted on crooked, a solar panel up top held down with what I'm fairly sure was a ratchet strap and a prayer. And there was a kid living out of it, 24 maybe. Cody, I want you to hold on to that van and hold on to that kid because the whole story's really just the two of us and a pot of coffee, a few evenings running. Now, I'll be honest with you, first night, I didn't think much of him. Skinny fella, hair he cut himself, a beanie he never took off. He had a paperback going and a guitar with a string missing, and he grinned at everybody like he hadn't a care in the world and nowhere in particular to be. And that grin, that was the first thing that snagged me. I've worn that grin. I know what it costs to keep it up. Second morning, that van would not start. I'm having my coffee, and I hear it rrrr, nothing. Rrrr, nothing. And then a young man's whole entire vocabulary, if you follow me.
The river carried it right down to us. I learned 2 new words, and I've been a nurse 38 years.
So I wandered down. Not to help exactly. You don't walk up on a man and tell him you're going to fix his troubles. I just leaned on the fender and said, "Sounds like she's cranking but not catching." And he looks up at me, this look like he's deciding whether I'm about to be a problem. I know that look too. It's the look of a kid who's had a lot of grown men be a problem. I said, "I'm 3 sites up. I've got jumper cables and I've got coffee, and the coffee's the better offer." And something in him let go about a 1/4 inch. And that's all you ever get at first, friend, a 1/4 inch. You take it. Turned out, it wasn't the battery. It was the fuel filter, clogged up like a 40-year-old drain. And he didn't have the first idea, and he was too proud to say so. So I did the thing my old mentor taught me. I didn't fix it for him. I handed him the wrench. Now let me tell you about the man who handed me the wrench, because he's standing behind everything I'm about to say, the way the mountains were standing behind that campground. His name was Gus Brennan. I was 17, no use to anybody, a mouth and 2 hands and a chip on my shoulder about the size of Ohio. I'd quit on the idea of college, and my daddy and I weren't speaking much, and Gus was a carpenter in town who needed a boy to carry his lumber and sweep his sites. He didn't hire me. I've thought about that a lot. A lot of men will hire a boy. Gus raised one. There's a difference, and it's the whole ball game.
He never once raised his voice at you. You told me that on our second date. I knew right then what kind of man you'd try to be.
I did try. Gus had these sayings. A level don't lie, Hank, so quit arguing with it. Measure twice so you only cry once. Little things. But the big thing he taught me, he never said out loud. He taught me that when a kid is drowning, you don't throw him a finished house. You throw him a wrench, and you stand there while he figures out his own 2 hands. So that's what I did with Cody. I stood in the dirt by that rusty van, and I let him skin his knuckles and cuss and get it wrong twice. And when it finally coughed and caught and ran, you'd have thought the boy invented the engine. He had grease to his elbows and this grin, but a different grin, a real one, first real one I'd seen on him.
He came up to the fire that night without being asked. That's how I knew he was ours for a few days.
And that's how it went for the better part of a week. He'd drift up to our fire around dark. Maggie'd feed him. Lord, she fed him.
Hank, The boy was living on gas station burritos and a jar of peanut butter he ate with a screwdriver. A screwdriver I have never in my life.
She bought him a fork in town, drove 20 miles, and bought that boy a fork and a sleeve of real cups, and set them in his van like a church lady leaving a casserole. He didn't know what to do with it.
Everybody ought to have one fork that somebody bought them on purpose. It's not about the fork.
It's never about the fork. You'll want to remember she said that too. Little by little over those evenings, the kid's story came out. Not all at once, you don't get it all at once, and you don't go digging. You just leave the fire lit and see what walks up to it. He was from out California way, more or less. Been on the road 2 years, worked trail crew in the summer, orchards in the fall, washed dishes in a ski town all winter for a bunk and a lift ticket. Smart kid, sharp as a tack, quoted me whole pages out of those paperbacks, but he had this way of talking about every place he'd been like he was already gone from it. Like he'd trained himself not to get his hands warm on anything. And there was a dad in it. There's usually a dad in it. They'd had a falling out, the kind where nobody did one big terrible thing. They just each did 100 small cold ones until the line went quiet and neither one had picked the phone back up. Cody said it like it didn't matter, said, "We're just different people," grinned. And I felt something go over me at that fire that I couldn't name for a day or two. Cold, like a cloud crossing the sun. I didn't know yet what it was. Maggie did. Maggie knew the first night. You want to know what a man like me does with a kid like that? I put him to work. Best I've got. It's the only love language I was ever any good at. I had a job I'd been putting off. The awning arm on the Wanderer had a bad bracket, and the step was loose, and there's always 100 little things on a rig. And I've got Gus's old hand tools in a canvas roll under the bed. Had 'em 30-odd years now, since Gus passed and left me the lot. Wood-handled, worn smooth, a man's whole life in the grain of 'em. I laid that roll out on the picnic table, and I watched Cody's eyes go across those tools the way some men look at a stained glass window, and I thought, there it is. There's the thing in him that's still trying to catch, still cranking, not catching.
You gave him Gus's chisel to hold. I saw you. You don't let our own Danny hold that chisel.
Danny doesn't need it the same way. Now, Danny's my son. Some of you are going to ask, good man, out in Denver, works too hard, calls when he can. That's a different fire and a different night. But I'll say this, and it took me too long to learn it. Sometimes the one who needs what you've got isn't the one you're related to. Sometimes he's 3 campsites down in a rusty van. We spent 2 whole days on that rig, him and me. Didn't rush a bit of it, and somewhere in there I told him the thing Gus never had to tell me, but I'd figured out the hard way, on my own, too late. See, I ran a business 35 years, Dawson & Son, back in Ohio, built or fixed half the houses in my town, and I was good at it, and I was proud, and I worked. Lord, I worked. Nights, weekends, holidays if the money was there. I told myself I was doing it for my family. That's what a man tells himself. And one day, I was up on a ladder on somebody else's beautiful house, and I did the arithmetic. All those hours. And I realized I could bill a man for my time, and I could bill him for my lumber, and I could bill him for my trouble. But there was one thing on this earth I could never once send an invoice for, and it was the only thing that was ever really mine to spend. Time. Your own time, and the time you get with the people you love. It's the only thing you can't bill for, and it's the only thing that was ever worth anything. And I spent 30 years learning to tell those two apart.
You're telling it like you're the only one who was busy. I worked doubles at that hospital. We were tired people who loved each other and kept missing each other in the driveway.
That's fairer. That's the truer way to say it. We were tired people who loved each other, and that's why we sold the idea, not the house, and bought this rig and started spending the only money that ever counted. Right, old girl?
Right.
I told Cody all that, out there with a wrench in my hand. He listened the way young people listen when they think they're only being polite, and then a thing sneaks in past their guard. And he said, I'll never forget it. He said, yeah, but you had somebody worth staying for, like it was a fact about the world, like it was weather. And that just about broke my heart, because I could hear, plain as the river, that this kid had decided somewhere along the line that he wasn't the staying kind, that he was built to leave, that it was safer to be the one who's already gone. And that, right there, was when I finally knew who he reminded me of. and I had to set the wrench down and walk to the river a minute, and led on I was checking the weather. I had a brother, Tommy, 5 years younger than me. And I have not told this part to many people. Tommy was the charming one, the one who walked into a room and the room got warmer, could make our mother laugh till she had to sit down, could make friends with a fence post. And he was always halfway out the door, restless, couldn't get his hands warm on anything either. He worked with me, off and on, at Dawson and Son, when he showed, good with his hands when he wanted to be and gone when he didn't. And I was the older brother, the serious one, the one holding it all together. And I was hard on him. I told myself it was for his own good. I told myself I'd have time to be easy on him later.
You saw Tommy and that boy the first night, Hank, by the van. I watched it go across your face, and I didn't say anything because some things a man has to get to on his own road.
She's right. I saw my brother in a stranger's rusty van, 30 years down the road, still leaving, still grinning that grinning so you don't cry grin. And God gave me a second look at him. That's how it felt. Like being handed something back. Now, I'll tell you the shape of it, and then I'll leave the rest be, because some things you don't lay all the way open, even by a good fire. One winter night in 1995, Tommy was driving home from a job. Late, tired, weather turning. And I was the one who'd asked him to take that job, 2 counties over, and he didn't make it home. 30 years I've carried the arithmetic on that one. All the times I was hard on him when I could have been easy. All the times I meant to call and figured there'd be a better time. There's no invoice for that either, friend, and no way to pay it back to the man himself. He's gone on down the road where you can't follow with a wrench and a pot of coffee. So, last spring, high country, and here's the night it all came to a point. It had been building to weather all day. You know how it does up high. The sky gets that bruised look by afternoon. And Cody comes up to the fire with his beanie on and his hands in his pockets, and I knew before he said a word. I've seen a man about to leave. There's a stillness comes over him, like they've already gone, and it's just the body hasn't caught up. He says, "Hey, I'm going to roll out tonight. Got a lead on trail work down south. Should drive while I've got the energy." Big grin. Nowhere to be. Everything's fine. And it's near dark, and the rain's starting to spit, and there's a pass between him and south, a real one, switchbacks, no shoulder, the kind of road that does not care how young you are. And the boy is dead tired. I'd watched him not sleep for 2 days, and every cell in my body stood up at once. Because I had been here before. I had stood in exactly this spot before, with exactly this boy, and I had said, that other time, "All right, drive safe. Call me when you get in." I had let the leaving be easier than the staying, one time, and it cost me everything I never got to say. So this time I didn't. I said no, just like that. "No, you're not driving that past tired, in the wet, in the dark, not tonight. You'll pull that van in behind our rig and you'll sleep. And if you still want to go in the morning, I'll make you coffee and shake your hand and wish you well. But you're not doing it tonight." And he bowed up at me a little. "They will, the good ones, the proud ones." He said, "You don't even know me, man." And I said the truest thing I had in me. I said, "You're right, I don't, but I knew somebody just like you." And I told him drive safe when I should have told him stay. And I have had 30 years to think about the difference. So you're going to give an old man this one, free of charge.
I had the kettle on already. I'd had it on since the sky turned. A nurse knows when somebody's about to do a thing they can't undo.
And the boy, this kid who'd trained himself 2 years never to get his hands warm on anything, he stood there in the spitting rain, and his chin went, just once, and he pulled that rusty van in behind the Wanderer. And he stayed. Storm blew through in the night, the way they do up high, and the morning came up washed in gold, the peaks all fresh snow, and the river louder than ever, and I made that coffee like I promised. And we sat on the tailgate of his van, and he was quiet a long while, and then he said, "I think I'm going to call my dad. That's all. Didn't look at me, just said it to the mountains. I think I'm going to call my dad."
And I had to go be very busy with the dishes right about then. Very, very busy.
She cried into the fry pan. I saw her.
I did no such thing. It was steam.
Here's the only lesson I've got, friend, and then I'll hush. You can't go back and give a man the time you owed him. That account's closed. I've tried to pay into it 30 years, and it will not take a deposit. But there is always another one coming up the road behind him. Always another kid 3 sights down, cranking and not catching, grinning so he doesn't cry. And you can give it to him. That's the only way I ever found to pay a debt like that, to the next one who's always leaving. You can't pay it back. So you pay it on down the road. A wrench and a pot of coffee and one night where somebody wouldn't let you go. That's not much, but I've come to believe it's about the whole job. Cody drove off 2 days later, south in the daylight, rested with a fork in his glove box and Gus's second-best chisel wrapped in a rag, because I couldn't not. He still texts. Sends Maggie a picture every now and then of wherever he's landed. Last one he had grease to his elbows and a girl in the background and that real grin.
He called his dad from a gas station in New Mexico, told me it was awkward and terrible, and he's going back for Thanksgiving. Best awkward, terrible phone call I ever heard about.
So that's the one I've been carrying. The kid who was always leaving, and the one before him I let leave too easy. If there's somebody in your life you keep meaning to call when there's a better time, neighbor, there isn't a better time. There's just the time. Go on and spend it. Maggie's giving me the look, which means the coffee's gone, and so's the evening. You come sit with us again tomorrow night. We'll keep a chair by the fire for you, and Scout'll keep your feet warm, and I'll find us another story. There's always another one down the road.
Good night, all. Drive safe, but not too tired.
Not too tired. That's the whole thing, isn't it? Good night, friend.